Okay, we had the new parts come through from the factory. We'll get them on the car ahead of FP1.
Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to an episode of my F1 2018 career mode, episode number 55 today for the Belgian Grand Prix in Season 3. If you guys did miss the previous one uploaded yesterday, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. But headed into then the Belgian Grand Prix, we have a minor aerodynamic update, a DRS update, so hopefully that should help us overtake some cars, and hopefully also on the qualifying lap with the DRS zones also help us a little bit, give us that little edge in straight line speed. Of course, Belgium, we know how good the slipstream can be, so in the race, that'll be very, very useful. We're having to overtake a lot of cars. You can see going into this one then, with that minor upgrade, we do stay ahead of Red Bull. They got very close to us in the last episode in terms of the performance chart, and Haas also looks like they've got a major upgrade, I would say that is, to try and close up to Red Bull and myself and McLaren. Force India now are once again ahead of Ferrari, then by only a tiny margin with Renault and Mercedes upgrading along with the bottom three. So a lot of update into Belgium, so we could see a very competitive grid. Of course, off the back of last episode, I'm wanting to try and break this kind of streak that Fernando Alonso has, and I need to try and do something about it, especially after last episode where things got a little bit tense. With my opinion, Alonso didn't have to pit on the same lap as me, but he did, so tensions are a little bit higher than usual in the team, but hopefully we can try and dampen them, and for my sake try and bounce back here at the Belgian Grand Prix. So let's go to qualifying then and see how we do over one lap.
It's qualifying time at Spa, one of the mightiest tracks on the Formula One calendar. Long straights, up and downhill, Eau Rouge as well. This track isn't for the faint-hearted. And I'm here, of course, with Anthony Davidson on what has turned out to be a very pleasant day indeed. No weather to interfere, no problems on the track, so absolutely no room for error.
That's right, Crofty. It's looking good out there at the moment. Each team will have their own game plan for this session, and of course, once the cars leave the garage, they'll be under parc fermé conditions, so any last-minute adjustments need to be done right here and now. Beyond that, it's all up to the driver. Who can keep their tyres in the right temperature? Who can hit their apexes? No race fuel on board these days, of course. These are the fastest cars we've had in a long, long time, and it's right here in qualifying where they're at their absolute peak. Let's get started.
So pretty overcast conditions then for Saturday at the moment. No rain was forecast there, but Belgium being Belgium, you can never know. There's sometimes rain coming in one sector and then no rain in the other two sectors, so we have to be careful about that. And of course, here this time last season in Season 2, we got massively caught out there when we couldn't go out early enough when the rain came down in the session. But thankfully for us this time around, we do make it into at least Q2, and we don't need to start from the back of the grid for the Belgium Grand Prix. You can see once again Alonso looking pretty hot in the first session, but ourselves in P12, not too bad. Obviously, Hungary, I said we are looking a lot better in Q1 relative to our teammate for once. And again, I guess it's better than being 15th place and just making it through by the skin of our teeth. But now in Q2 there, Alonso goes fastest. I go up into what was P6 there momentarily, down to P10 now. And by the time I fast forward through this session towards the end of it, I can see I'm clearly going to go down the order, down to P11 minimum there. And so we're going to have to go for a second flying lap already, though, into turn 1. I made a little bit of a mistake and went a little bit wide on the first run there. So already getting some time through literally the first corner, and then as we go on through the lap, then through Podium, a little bit more flat out on the left-hander there. Finding it tricky actually in the McLaren compared to the Haas. I felt like the Haas I was driving last season was a lot more stable into the left-hander of Podium. Like, I feel like the McLaren definitely gets unsettled a little bit on the rear end, so I was finding myself having to brake a little bit more than I did in the Haas at Podium, which is a little bit odd to me, because the car definitely is in a better position than the Haas was at the end of Season 2, you know, in terms of relative performance points. But nonetheless, we do make it through eventually into P10, just by a margin there to Lewis Hamilton in P11. So once again, both Mercedes out there, and the Toro Rosso actually makes it in a Pierre Gasly there. So it looks like Toro Rosso's upgrades working quite a treat there for the Frenchman. But Alonso once again looking pretty damn hot there in Q2. So I won't be surprised, to be honest, if he gets on pole position here. But for now, to my shock, actually, Sebastian Vettel is on provisional pole position, despite Ferrari being below Force India in the performance chart. I would have assumed Force India would have been very good this weekend, because like I said, every time they upgrade in this career mode, it seems they exponentially improve. So far, not to be the case, and so Vettel is still on provisional pole by the time I go out for my one and only flying lap, because remember, I burned 2 sets of super softs in Q2, so I only had 1 fresh set super softs to use in Q3. So I thought I may as well wait till the end of the session when the track grip is at its highest. All the rubber is kind of rubbered into the surface there. But at the moment, it's still Vettel then on provisional pole. Alonso's in P2 there. So let's try and see if we can maybe get it onto the front row and cause an upset against Fernando Alonso at least, or maybe even get that elusive first pole of the career mode. You never know. But as I've said many times, qualifying has never been a specialty of mine. I much rather get stuff done in the race most of the time. I can never just get it all together in one pressurized lap. I don't know what it is. I've always been like that with the F1 games. But here we go then into the last corner. Then it's been a pretty tidy lap, I feel. So I think this could be a pretty damn good one, and at least, you know, pretty near to Alonso, I hope, for our sake, at least for the starting grid. Across the line then, and it's going to be P3 on the grid, right behind Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel. But you can see in terms of lap times there, I'm pretty happy with how close I am to Alonso and Vettel, and surprised at how far off the pace Force India were, and also Red Bull, to be fair. Verstappen didn't even make it into Q3, so he'll start outside the top 10 along with Hamilton. Ricciardo is the only Red Bull that made it in, surprisingly. I guess it's a bit of an upset, I guess, for Toro Rosso to make it in, Verstappen not to, but we're going to be right behind the pole to Sebastian Vettel. We only have 2 cars then to pass until we get into the lead of the Grand Prix tomorrow, so I'm feeling a lot more confident than I was at Hungary. Well, obviously we got way down the order due to the grid penalty that we had with the gearbox there. So let's go into the intro and see how we go at the race day.
In the 48 races held at Spa between 1950 and 2015, the race winner has only started from pole position on 16 occasions. Qualifying yesterday may have set the order for today, but expect the unexpected here at the Belgian Grand Prix. As the saying goes, of course, anything can happen. And you know what? It usually does. So here we are once again, ready to go racing through the Ardennes Forest. 4.35 miles of long straights, fast corners and massive elevation changes. It makes this not only one of the most exciting circuits on the calendar, but one that makes for some consistently high-quality racing as well. Simply put it, there really is no place quite like Spa. Anthony Davidson is alongside me in the commentary box to take you through all the action today. Now, it's a closely matched field here at Spa, Ant, so where do you think we're going to see somebody make a difference?
If they're as close as we're expecting them to be, especially through the midfield, then being able to keep the front tyres in good condition could make the difference. You always lose a chunk of downforce at the front when you're in the turbulent air of another car, which tends to cause understeer, which in turn causes front tyre degradation. Now, too much damage there could force an early pit stop and put you at a slight disadvantage, so the drivers will want to be careful not to be too aggressive early on in the Grand Prix.
Well then, after an exciting qualifying session yesterday, let's take a look at how the cars line up. Sebastian Vettel has a clear track ahead of him today. He starts in pole position, and it's Fernando Alonso in P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have the engineer, Raikkonen, Kevin Magnussen, and Ricciardo, Ocon, Perez, Grosjean, and Pierre Gasly, Hamilton, Hülkenberg, Max Verstappen, and Bottas, Sainz, Sirotkin, Lance Stroll, and Marcus Ericsson. Hartley and Charles Leclerc rounds off the grid. Now it's almost time to lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Right, so here we are at a very gloomy grid then for the Belgian Grand Prix, but it is going to get a bit sunnier as we go on through the Grand Prix. No rain later to talk about, so it's going to be a very bog standard one-stop then. Super soft to medium tyres. In the past 2 seasons here at Belgium, we've done the 2-stop instead. I think this time around the one-stop really is the way to go, especially with the performance of our car here. I think we're going to need the one-stop to match Alonso there, so a little bit less fuel than the game wants me to put in, but still a decent amount to use rich mix, plenty, especially at the start of this Grand Prix. So let's get into it then as we go to 5 red lights to the Belgian Grand Prix from P3 on the grid. 5 red lights are out and we're underway. It's an okay start for us, a good one for Fernando Alonso. Vettel bogs down a tad into turn 1. It's a great start for Magnussen, who finds his way past Kimi Raikkonen and tried to go around the outside of myself for P3, but instead he gets P4. Raikkonen down to P5 then. Alonso follows Vettel as we go through Rouge up the hill then to the Kemmel Straight. Will Alonso pull out to make a move on Vettel? Let's see, can we pull out even, because we've got overtake mode mode going. Rich mix, and look at that. We're flying towards Alonso. Alonso pulled to the right. I pulled to the left. It's 3 wide between myself, Alonso, and Vettel. Vettel in the middle. Can he do anything to defend from Alonso? Yes, he can. He pulls through on the outside. He's still in the lead, technically. Yellow flags behind, and Vettel with a very big pinch on the left-hand side there. So Sebastian tries his hardest to keep the lead that he got from pole position there, and he's done well so far as we remain in P2. Alonso down to P3 then. So instead of gaining 1 position, Alonso lost 1 down to P3. Magnussen still P4 then behind the Spaniard. So as we go through the Podium then, can we try and still keep on the back of the Ferrari car? It doesn't seem like Vettel has too much pace actually at the start there. He's going very slow in fact. So can we find our way past for the race lead now through the right and then the left up into 5th gear, applying the power as early as we dare. Vettel's still there on the outside and he's alongside with the proximity arrow. He's trying his hardest to keep up there, but ultimately the Ferrari just doesn't look like he has the straightaway grip there on heavier fuel, and now he's down to P2 and Alonso might fancy overtaking him as we go down through the back straight towards Blanchimont and then the bus stop chicane. We're going to remain in P1, just kind of moving a little bit off the racing line, trying to maybe stop Vettel getting a tow. He's going to try and maybe outbrake us round the outside. He does really well actually, to be fair to him, and he's down my inside then for the last corner. So with the fighting still not over technically for my P1 position, but then as we move on to onto lap 2, we set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Then obviously usually the pole sitter's the man who sets the purple lap time on lap 1 there, but you saw how fast I gained on those guys. I was so surprised at the slipstream efficiency that we basically got on Alonso and Vettel up this very hill and the main straight. And actually look at that, as I say that, Alonso actually didn't even notice that. Alonso got P2 there as Vettel was forced wide by myself. And so it's a 1-2 for McLaren now as we pull out to break the tow very aggressively on Alonso. Don't want him getting the slipstream that I got on him. And so we're going to remain in P1 then and hopefully keep this position as we go on through this Grand Prix. But as we fly through the laps then, still very foggy and misty here at the Belgian Grand Prix. But you can see already myself and Alonso are getting the pedal down and are very rapidly getting away from the Ferrari cars. I mean, just look at the gap there already is to Vettel and Raikkonen, that line astern in P3 and P4. So it looks like Raikkonen's actually done well to re-overtake Kevin Magnussen then, but Alonso pressurizes me, but both of us are kind of pushing each other very hard to just pull away from the entire grid. So right now, to be honest, the way it's looking, visually speaking, this is probably the most dominant this McLaren car's looked the entire season so far. I mean, I know Alonso had some dominant performances in the last couple of episodes, but as a tandem kind of pair, at the moment our car's looking the strongest it ever has been in the season so far. Again, we pull out to the right to break the tow very aggressively on Alonso. We pull across back to the racing line. So far so good at defending from my teammate there, but you can clearly see he is giving me a good run for the money and keeping me very honest indeed as we move on now later onto lap number 4. And Alonso now is as close as he ever has been in this opening stint of the Grand Prix there. So as we enter the bus stop chicane, we're on overtake mode for now, down to high as we enter the apex to save some ERS battery store for the pit straight and also the run to Rouge. As we go towards lap 5 then, we set a purple lap time there, but then Alonso immediately sets another better purple lap time and he's right my outside there, pressurizing me into a mistake. A lock up on the front right there. He's on the outside. We squeezed him a little bit off circuit there, not intentionally to be fair. It's just with the lock up, it kind of just made me go a little bit deeper. There he is now, toe to toe, up the hill, side by side, and Alonso just backs out that. It was inches away from making contact up the hill, and Alonso massively backs out of that, and probably good, because otherwise that would have been a pretty horrendous crash, probably, or at least a bit of contact that would have sent the guys on the pit wall, especially Zach Brown, probably into a bit of a heart attack moment there. Let's ride on board and look at a replay then. Alonso, really nice move to hang it around the outside. You can see there, I lock up and send him a little bit wide, and he's riding the curb a little bit, and then he just gets the power down. I assume maybe hot lap mode and overtake mode, as was I, but he just gets a much better run, and then up the hill, eventually he just has to lift off there. At that point, he was going to cut the corner massively as he went up the hill, so, you know, just backed out of that, as Alonso would do. You know, many times we've seen his kind of racing, you know, brain kicks in when it needs to, and he can sense when he needs to back out and survive the moment, as it were. But now, on to the end of lap 5, we're going to come in one lap earlier than Alonso. Finally, I can actually make a pit stop here and try and get an undercut on Alonso. Last time out of Hungary, I wanted to do that, and remember, he pit in the same exact time as me. This time round, I was the lead car, but it looks like he was always planning to go one lap longer anyway. So we're going to come in for the set of white wall medium tyres to the end of the Grand Prix, and now we just kind of have fingers crossed that we don't get held up in any traffic, and that Alonso, I don't wish traffic upon him, but if he does have a few issues here and there, that would be kind of nice. Obviously, that traffic for him will be only as soon as he exits the pit lane. Obviously, right now at the moment, he's in the lead of the Grand Prix with clean air, but by the time we get to this point in the circuit on the next lap, I hope that maybe we can come in some clean air, and he might not be, because at the moment we're in P6. Carlos Sainz out ahead on soft tyres ahead of us, so I imagine he's doing a bit of a longer one-stop essentially, but a bit of a weird one really, that pretty much everyone can do a one-stop, especially if you can take the super softs that long and you go onto the medium tyres. There might be a couple that try the two-stop onto two sets of soft tyres if they start on the super softs, the likes of the guys who will start in the top 10. Well, I imagine if you started outside the top 10, there's a no-brainer to do a one-stop pretty much at this Grand Prix. So here we go then into turn 1 as Pierre Gasly sets the fast lap of the Grand Prix. We do come out ahead of Alonso, and Alonso does get stuck with a bit of traffic of the Toro Rosso car there. So Alonso will have to do some overtaking before he can even see the bright papaya orange of my car there ahead of him. So here he goes now up the hill. It's going to be pretty damn easy though, you would say. The Honda power, the much upgraded Renault power, the McLaren. Obviously, we're pretty much near enough completed the entire engine tree of the R&D there, and so Alonso sells past, especially with that improved DRS, remember, as well. And so Alonso now can try and chase after myself as we do the same to the other Spaniard in this grid, Carlos Sainz in the Renault Works car. As we do that though, cycling down the ERS modes there on the right hand side, you can see from medium to low, because this part of the circuit's the best part to really save the ERS battery store so that we can use it on the main straights really. I don't really lose too much time, although speaking about losing time, Sainz definitely loses me some time directly there by brake checking me pretty much and going a little bit slow. Maybe his tyres are started to go off. I wouldn't blame him there, but we're going to move to the left hand side then to overtake him with overtake mode. A bit of a squeeze there from Sainz, but we get it done and we're up into P2 then. So Verstappen now is the only guy up ahead of us in the lead of the Grand Prix, but again he is also on soft tyres. Remember, Verstappen got knocked out in Q2, so he also, like Carlos Sainz, would have been able to start on the soft tyres, so he's going a lot longer, but again he's doing the same one stop that we are, or all are, so it doesn't really matter too much. The only thing is, maybe at the moment he'll be a little bit faster, because even worn soft tyres might be better than the fresher mediums, because the medium tyres really aren't that great. There's a good reason why I haven't used the mediums quite a lot historically at this track in the last 2 seasons of this game, because the mediums don't really feel that great off the bat, but after a couple of laps they do kind of rubber in a little bit more and kind of heat up, and you feel a little bit better about them. But anyway, now moving on to our teammate then, he looks likely to maybe overtake Carlos Sainz as well, so Spaniard v Spaniard, but at the end of the straight actually Alonso just can't quite catch up to the Renault. And to be fair actually, we saw at the beginning of the season the Renault Works team on the R&D chart, they're actually quite high up in the engine order. They might be lower chassis and aero wise, but they're quite high in the engine order, so he might have a decent amount of straight line speed to defend from Alonso. But in the corners the McLaren should be no competition here, so as they enter the part where I overtook Sainz as well, Alonso dives it down the inside, a little bit of contact made, but Sainz pretty much lets him through almost. Like, I don't know if he made it, there was a bit of puff of smoke, so I think Sainz locked up there and might be a bit of a mistake, but Alonso gets past very easily then on that inside line of that right hand in the kind of shimmy and shake chicane. But now Sainz will now close back up though with that speed, and so he might give Alonso a bit of trouble maybe into the bus stop chicane. Let's see. All the while though, that's going to help me out a little bit, giving me some breathing room to save some ERS and also fuel at the same time. But as we enter now the bus stop, Verstappen now, you can see on the right hand side there's a name tag just pops in there. He's going to come in for a pit stop then, so we'll be back up into the lead of the Grand Prix. Then Alonso P2, Carlos Sainz P3, so Sainz running pretty damn high actually. I don't know if he's on soft tyres right now, still going, so unless he pits on the next lap, I'm inclined to think maybe somehow he's trying some random strategy here to still be right up there in this Grand Prix. We'll have to see, but right now his focus is mainly just on my teammate Alonso there and trying to chase him down. I don't know, a bit of pride maybe, just beating the more senior Spaniard, I guess. I mean, Sainz has always said how he's looked up to Alonso, so trying to race him and beat him would be quite some feat obviously here, especially with how good the McLaren car is these days. But now Sainz on the outside there, he does and he goes around the outside. He's overtaken him. He's back up into P2 then. So a really nice scrap this is, back and forth between Sainz and Alonso, and it will continue on until the back straight. Here goes once again Alonso now down the inside then before Blanchimont goes, and he's used the slipstream to good effect there. Now that's more like the OP slipstream that we know and love at the Belgian Grand Prix. He's able to sail past there with no DRS, of course, on that back kind of, well, it's not really straight, a little bit of a kink, the double left kinks, and he's able to get past back up into P2. But now once again, now Sainz will have DRS as they go up the hill onto the Kemmel Straight. So it's a case of if Sainz is patient enough, he could get the re-overtaking move done and get back up into P2. So it's going to be another case of, it's definitely like playing chess almost. It's kind of like, you know, pick your battles. And at the moment, Alonso's not really picking his battles. He needs to overtake Sainz ideally at this part of the circuit to then use the McLaren downforce to get away from him in Sector 2 almost. But at the moment, Alonso's not doing that. And Sainz, as you can clearly see, is just able to waltz past him again with DRS there. And he's back up into P2, although a bit of a lock-up there. So maybe Sainz might make a mistake or two soon enough. But now we move on to a different battle entirely. This is Pierre Gasly closing up on Daniel Ricciardo, the junior sister Red Bull team there on the outside with the DRS pass. And Gasly is round and past Ricciardo. So the Toro Rosso has some very decent speed, or at least Pierre Gasly has some very decent speed. He was the only Toro Rosso that got into the top 10, and clearly he's very handy around this circuit right now and taking a booster. Maybe he's taking a bit of inspiration from back in his performance in the French Grand Prix, remember, when both Toro Rossos got very high points. But once again now, Alonso is past Sainz in that same exact place on the track there, down the inside. Meanwhile, though, further back then, Ricciardo, after being overtaken by Gasly, this is maybe actually why he got overtaken. Maybe it wasn't Gasly's speed, it was thereof lack of speed from the Red Bull car, because now Ricciardo is going to go up in smokes and retire from the Belgian Grand Prix. So my nearest title rival, apart from Fernando Alonso, is out of the Belgian Grand Prix. So that's going to be a bit easier on us in the standings. Of course, though, still Alonso will be a threat. But now we've got the full safety car out, and that is actually not for Daniel Ricciardo, because this is a few laps later, and it's for another instant, and it's for Kimi Räikkönen, who is out of the Belgian Grand Prix. So I was surprised there was no safety car for Ricciardo, because that was quite a dangerous place to park it up. But even more so is the place where Räikkönen parks up there on the exit of Podium. You know, easily a car could spew off on the wide and hit Räikkönen whilst he's parked up there. So that's why the full safety car has been called out there for Räikkönen's incident. So now with 10 laps to go then, we've got a bit of an easier time now for 2 laps at least. We can lift and coast and save some fuel, and also save up the ERS battery. We'll also allow a few cars to also make a lucky escape and make a free pit stop there under the safety car. One of them being Pierre Gasly in the Toro Rosso. He was on a 2-stop there, so that's going to help him out massively, because instead of going way down the order outside the top 10, he'll actually remain in the top 6, I think, and still be right there for the taking right at the end there. But we narrowly missed the safety cars. That confused me quite a fair bit, because the safety car just pulled on the left and kind of almost camouflaged into the circuit there. So thankfully I didn't actually hit the safety car. That would have been quite embarrassing and quite a bad moment for me in the race in terms of being taken out of the Grand Prix, because remember, Räikkönen just got disqualified only a couple episodes ago for hitting the safety car at Austria. So that would have been not the one, clearly, under the safety car. But you can see this is the running order then. Myself in first place, Alonso P2, so still 1-2 from McLaren. Verstappen up into P3 then. Grosjean still right up there in P4 for Haas. Then you've got the Ferrari of Vettel. Then it's the 2 Toro Rosso cars of Brendan Hartley actually ahead right now of Pierre Gasly. So not only is the Frenchman doing great, the Kiwi man, Brendan Hartley, both the Toro Rossos looking fantastic at the moment in this race. You know, it's a sprint race now to the end. Only a few laps left, and they're on soft, fresh tyres. But now we're warming our tyres up as best we can. But obviously on this game, it's very difficult to really heat up the tyres as much as the AI do. But now, obviously, I'm the leader, so I'm just trying to tactically play this and wait for the right moment, I feel, in my mind, to kind of go and bolt and put down the power. And this is now, as we just enter the boss stop again, we're going to try and get going. At the moment, we have done an okay job of getting away from Alonso. Alonso's got a lot further away from Verstappen than I have to Alonso, though. So as a team, we've done quite well in the restart there. But Fernando might give me a good run into the Rouge, because as we lock up there in the front right, he gets a much better exit. So as much as safety car has helped the likes of the Toro Rosso and also myself to save some fuel and ERS battery power, you can see on the bottom right there, as we're in hot lap mode, it's completely filled up here. Alonso obviously is now able to make a free kind of attack on me, because I was 3 seconds ahead of him before the safety car period. So now here he comes now in the slipstream. His arrow getting closer and closer. He's in the right hand side mirror there. Down the inside Alonso will go. We're on the outside, turn to the inside for the next corner, but he does really well mid corner to get it through and plant the power, and he's actually ahead of us right now. now for P1. We're going to come back at him though on the swing down the hill now on the very understeery right-hander, trying to just get the car turned in there. Alonso still to the inside. We'll have the inside line for the next left-hander. Can we squeeze him out, scrub off the speed a little bit, go wide on purpose on the exit and scrub out for P1. Alonso now has actually lost enough speed that he's now actually looking behind him for Verstappen. So there's a whole train and bottleneck now behind Alonso. So let's use this to our advantage and get away from Fernando right now, and hopefully he can get attacked a little bit by Verstappen, but not too much obviously, because I still want the team to do well. But if Verstappen can just pressurize him, that'll be enough for me. But actually looks like Verstappen has more ideas than just pressurizing him, as he goes round the outside then to the inside of the bus stop, and he's going to get that pass done and booked, and he's up into P2 then. The Dutchman flying at the moment here, but Alonso will come back at him though. But the Red Bull has DRS, so very weird to see the McLaren actually still have the straight line speed to overtake the Red Bull car despite having DRS. But into turn 1, Verstappen defends well enough to keep P2 for now, but can he get it back just like he did against Carlos Sainz? Here he goes, a little bit of a look up the hill, but Alonso yet again has to back out that, just like he did with my overtake. Alonso sees the light and just kind of gets out the throttle up the hill and avoids any kind of collision and contact. So as Verstappen gets away from Alonso and tries to chase myself, I don't know if Alonso has some sort of issue now in this Grand Prix, because he's going massively slow through Sector 2, and to the end of the lap now he's being overtaken by Grosjean as Pierre Gasly now finds himself going around the outside of the Ferrari of Vettel there. So great stuff for Gasly, but meanwhile Alonso is really floundering now as Grosjean looks to overtake him for P3 in this Grand Prix as they do the dance through the bus stop chicane. Grosjean up into P3. Alonso tries to fight him back, and Gasly unsuccessfully doesn't get Vettel quite yet through Blanchimont, so the Frenchman will have to wait for that. But still, we look on to this battle between Alonso and Grosjean. They're still toe-to-toe as they go towards Rouge. Alonso gets the advantage as they go up the hill then, but now the Haas, crucially, DRS is going to be activated now, and he will have that available to overtake him. And so as they go over the crest, then that DRS flap will open right about now as they cross the line, and so not only Grosjean, but Vettel also might fancy an overtake, as well as Pierre Gasly as well. Look how close these four cars are. You could throw a blanket over these four cars, and Grosjean is passed up into P3, and Gasly is trying to do his best to get past Vettel, and he might do it, you know, actually. Alonso in a world of his own now, and I think Gasly did get that. Yes, he did, and Gasly now is pressurising Alonso, and Gasly has just overtaken Fernando Alonso in a Toro Rosso Honda. Alonso is going to be absolutely triggered by that overtake. The Honda-powered Toro Rosso has overtaken him there in a season where the McLaren car is the best car on the grid. That is not going to be one happy Spaniard there. Clearly, Alonso has some sort of mechanical issue that is holding him back in this race now as we go on to the last 2 laps of the Grand Prix, or actually on to the last lap technically, because we're literally right at the end of lap 21 of 22, and Verstappen now is closing us up despite being on overtake mode there. You can see I'm using all the electrical battery power and also a rich mix. I mean, we don't need to worry about fuel. I save so much fuel under the safety car that I don't need to worry about it. But even so, I guess Verstappen is just pulling up even more pace out of nowhere here, and despite me having everything on maximum, that Red Bull car is a lot faster at the moment now through turn 1. He has a little bit of a dive and a pop on the outside there. We're going to squeeze him out though, a little bit off circuit in fact. Verstappen goes, and so obviously he's not my teammate, so I can squeeze him a little bit harder than I would Alonso maybe. But now as we go up the hill, Verstappen tucks in then, and is not going to try and make it side by side. He thinks a little bit more cleverly, and he's going to try and maybe make a move at the end of the Kemmel Straight. We're going to try and break the toe on the right hand side there. Verstappen will stick to the racing line on the left hand side. We're still overtake mode though, rich mix, and we're going to keep this though as Verstappen tries to have a look, but in the end we are going to have it, and we're going to stay calm and collected on this last lap of the Grand Prix. And so it's just a formality of now going through towards Blanchimont and then the last few corners of the bus stop chicane and making sure Verstappen doesn't spring a surprise. He is going to try something on the left hand side. We break a little bit early to stop a lockup, but I've got it under control. I'm calm. Through the last corner we go, and we're going to get first place and a win at the Belgium Grand Prix.
Great job. You've done everything we wanted today.
So, another fantastic victory for McLaren today. And I have to wonder, Anthony Davidson, just what set them apart from the competition here?
Well, they played the safety car to absolute perfection. There are so many factors to worry about once the race is neutralised. I mean, do you pit for fresh rubber? Do you have the space behind you? How much fuel can you save? If you answer all of those questions correctly, you'll have a good chance. And that's exactly what happened today.
Our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations, and it's going to be McLaren picking up the winner's trophy. Congratulations to the entire team for that fantastic performance.
This win tastes oh so sweet. This win, to be honest, feels like my very first win in the season because we got the first win at the French Grand Prix, but remember, we got gifted that after Alonso, who was in the lead, had an engine failure. This one I've earned fair and square there, defending from Verstappen in the end, and it feels so much better because, especially that first stint, you know, overtaking Vettel and Alonso in the way we did, the fashion we did on lap 1, so aggressive, and getting to first place immediately before we even entered Sector 3 on the opening lap, makes this win so much sweeter and so much more satisfying. Hopefully for you guys as well, it looks and feels a lot better to you guys as well compared to the French Grand Prix, like I said. So be sure to smash that like button for the real first kind of proper victory we've got. But look at that, Pierre Gasly over to Grosjean in the end. So the two Frenchmen do really well at Belgium, but Gasly gets the Toro Rosso on the podium. Fair play, son, fair play. Third place for him. Verstappen second. You can see Alonso drops all the way down to P6, so he definitely had some sort of mechanical issue that was holding him back. And so in the championship, it goes from being a little bit, you know, pulling the collar moment to 25 points to Alonso to now extending the gap in the championship there. Ricciardo drops off as Verstappen overtakes him, so Verstappen now is the lead Red Bull car in the championship, with Perez still somehow there in third place in the Force Indy car. Constructors wise, we do really well to extend it to Red Bull and the McLaren team, and Toro Rosso have done a lot of good work there. If Toro Rosso have another result like that, they could maybe even overtake Mercedes, and dare I say it, Mercedes could be a bottom 2 team in the standings. That would be quite something to see as Renault try and keep on the pressure on Ferrari in the mid-table there. But now we're going to go to the end of the episode and take the final interview from Claire, and I can be a bit happier about my race win in the interview compared to what I was in France.
Good day today. Tell us about it from your perspective. It doesn't get much better than a win at this track, does it?
I'm going to go full-on obnoxious and do a Lewis Hamilton and say these are the best fans I've ever seen, the best fans around. I'm going to be really supportive of the team there, of this kind of a second win of the season.
Another podium. You must be getting used to it up there.
Going to compliment the power unit. I think the power unit definitely did a lot of work for us, especially you could tell against the Ferrari car in the opening lap. Definitely did help us power past Sebastian Vettel there, so going to compliment them.
Well, looks like your luck has changed. Things went a lot better than last weekend, didn't they?
Obviously a lot luckier and things went our way here compared to the Hungarian Grand Prix, but seeing as we did have an aero improvement into this Grand Prix, going to compliment the aero department there on the top-hand side.
It wasn't your rival's day today, was it?
And we're going to be a bit showy here and stick it to Fernando Alonso. There can only be one person's day every single time we turn up to the Grand Prix there.
Appreciate your time. And
so with that, it's going to be the end of the interview, and for now, we're now leading the fourth rivalry with Fernando Alonso. At the moment, obviously, it's 2-1, but we are going to be hopefully successfully beating Raikkonen there in the second rivalry. But going to the end of the episode then, don't actually know what to upgrade here. I was looking around, debated, and really, to be honest, I didn't want to upgrade anything on the aero right now. I didn't want to do rear downforce or front downforce, or even this DRS improvement. So you know what? I'm going to save my R&D points for either the ultimate upgrade on the engine, maybe, or the chassis, or also remember, some of you guys have been pointing out, saving the R&D points for the R&D reset that might be coming up at the Japanese Grand Prix around then. So for now, we don't need to spend huge amounts. We're still the #1 car, so we can afford to take a step back here and try and keep up a bit of a reserve of resource points there. So guys, if you did enjoy the episode, smash that up button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And you're around, get subscribed for weekly full-on content. I've been Ava. Hope you enjoyed your day, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.